I thought we might just start by maybe talking a bit about, well, that house really.
Yes, that's right. It was very interesting, wasn't it? Because you had some amazing conversations and lots of visitors as well. I remember Derek Jarman was one of our visitors, wasn't he?
And you were there that fateful day when the Evening Chronicle turned up to take my photograph at the front gate. I mean, the other thing which we laugh about is the infamous I'm gay - Councillor front page of the Evening Chronicle.
Have you got it? Have you got it there?
I have got it, yeah. I've still got it. I've still got the paper. I can remember then becoming a very public face. If there was something that was to do with being gay, and that was the word that we used all the time, we didn't talk about LGBTQI then, we didn't have that notion of identity. I would be the person who would be contacted by a journalist, only local journalists, but local journalism had a much more significant reach in 1988 than it does now. So if you were on the local news, everybody saw it. And that was quite an odd thing, to be that out suddenly and to be that much kind of a public face of something. I just wanted to go back to the fact that you and I were in a relationship. And I looked at photographs of myself, age 25, and thought, my God, if I now
with your nice green blazer on or whatever it was, yeah.
Exactly. What the hell was that all about? This kind of mock respectability of the green blazer and the coiffed 1980s hair. It did look ridiculous.
It was exciting, wasn't it? It was exciting.
Yeah, I found it very exciting.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have, I don't think it would have occurred to me to run away from it. No. Whether I processed properly what it meant for me, who knows? Probably not. But
what about now, reflecting back? Do you think it has had? Do you think it still forms part of who you are? That time.
Yes, I do. It helps me. No, I do. I mean, you're right. You are right. Some of the radical politics things, and in gender politics too, I come out quite radically. And I think, well, what would Melissa say, or what would Catherine say about gender in this situation? And actually, I'll be fascinated to talk to them now about, and you about a lot of the modern gender things.
Trade unions were driving an agenda of change, and they were campaigning on things like the fact that there was no employment protection, that you could just simply be sacked for being a lesbian or being a gay man, and that was perfectly legal, and employment tribunals had upheld that consistently. And again, I could see that becoming a councillor was a way of trying to drive that agenda locally.
Round about the time when we were all living together, I was beginning to write and research, particularly on what in those days was gay and lesbian in Spanish terms, gay and lesbian cultures, and some quite radical stuff actually came, didn't it, to the festival, to the Lesbian Gay Film Festival there at the Tyneside, which was a precursor, in fact, I was remembering the other day, to the London Lesbian and Gay Film Festival, because it was Peter Packer and his team who put together the programming for the very first showcase down in London, based on what they managed to get up here to the Tyneside.
Children who need to be taught to respect traditional moral values are being taught that they have an inalienable right to be gay. All of those children are being cheated of a sound start in life. Yes, cheated.
What's your memory of Manchester, that huge demonstration in Manchester?
But nobody had any idea of what it was going to greet us. I mean, I think we thought we were going to be a couple of hundred people, but it was absolutely enormous, wasn't it? Standing up and making some... Do you remember in Albert Square, people standing up on the statues and on the benches and making more or less impromptu speeches.
Because that whole notion of being pretend immediately sets up that dynamic. Well, what do you mean pretend? Our families are real. So then that idea that people were able to, you know, and you can say that Section 28 actually politicised a whole load of people that would never have been political at all. So what they thought they could do was oppress us. But ironically, what happened was that it awakened political understanding and it brought together, as we've talked about before, it brought together men and women, it brought together lesbians, men, bisexuals. Who said, no, for the first time, you're not doing it.
You know, being out and proud, as we then would describe it, had risk attached to it for an awful lot of people. And, you know, I certainly felt very, I think now I recognise it as privilege. I didn't think I called it that then, but I had privilege in that I knew that my employment wasn't at risk. I knew that my home wasn't at risk. And so I felt that I could be somebody who was very out. How might you have described yourself back then?
You know, as that story goes to so many rural gay people, that, you know, I was the only one who cooked at school or did domestic science at school. I didn't play rugby, and all my friends were girls, and, you know, I was that, and I was happy to be that. Yeah, I was definitely. Oh no, I've never questioned my sexuality. No, I always was definitely gay.
And also, I mean, I think it was very radical that you were an out academic.
Yeah, it was a challenge to get any conversations going, really. One kept on meeting up with quite polite, liberal, tolerant, and now let's talk about something else kind of conversations.
I think from the point when I properly came out, which was 1987, which was no surprise to anybody, I think I have always felt very positive about being a lesbian.
I think that's a very positive thing to finish on. But I'm going to stop recording. So I just need to do that. Put on these glasses so I can see.